Oh, it was right after 9/11. Everybody was flying flags on their combines, and we had one wrapped up tight. An American flag was wrapped up tight. We ended up pulling the whole unloading auger system out to get that American flag out.
Whoa.
But you know what? We took it apart without cutting that flag, so that was pretty cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, farmers, ranchers, and distinguished guests, thank you for listening to the Farm for Profit podcast, where we discuss the latest ideas, methods, trends, and techniques available to help your farm achieve higher levels of farm profitability. The Farm for Profit podcast is co-hosted by Tanner Winterhoff, the Iowa Bankerman, and David Whitaker, the Iowa Land Guy, where in tandem they will share their ideas and advice from industry experts. Thank you again for listening to the Farm for Profit podcast. Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long. And now, here's Tanner and David.
All right, welcome back to another Farm for Profit podcast. This is Tanner Winterhoff.
And this is David Whitaker.
We appreciate you as listeners for picking this podcast to listen to. We know that there are millions out there, and we aren't who we are without you. So thank you very much for joining in and listening to our podcast.
You bet. And thanks for all the suggestions and topics. Remember, if you have any of those, send them to Farm4Profit LLC at gmail.com. Tanner, we got a great listener review this week. Who's that from?
Well, this was a fun one because it's from Brant Pavel, and I had to read this username a couple of times. So it's Brantum of the Opera.
Oh,
Tom of the Opera. So very clever there. Started listening to your podcast a few weeks ago as a young professional. I really enjoyed your Best Customers Make the Most Profit episode. Keep up the good work. That was a fun one. I remember we grabbed a lot of input from Twitter to put that episode together, finding out what everybody thought their favorite customer did. So I remember that one. That was a very good one. Thank you, Brant, for reaching out. And remember, like, rate, review, and share this podcast wherever you get the opportunity to do so.
And Tanner, out there right now, everybody's kind of applying fertilizer. That stinks. I mean, I tell you what, there's turkey crap going. There's manure everywhere.
Yeah, that great segue, Dave, into the 401 products by BW Fusion. So remember, you can go out to our website and find that link to BW Fusion. They've got 3 ways to apply this team of 26 microbes. 401 is the in-furrow product. Put that on with the planter, corn or beans, doesn't matter. They've got their Environox seed treatment that goes on your beans. It might be a little late in the season to get that done, Dave, but I'm sure you could bug your seed treater, and he'll get it put on for you. It's important. And then Biocast. So you can put that on with your herbicide. That also is broadcasted for corn and beans.
But at least it won't stink, so that's good.
That's right. So check out BW Fusion. We appreciate their support.
Well, Tanner, let's go to what's working in ag.
Yeah, buddy.
And we want to tell our farmers, of course, coffee shop talk now. What is working out there?
Yeah, so we have a guest from across the pond. We've only done this a couple of times. So we have Bill Dickhut here with us. He is the president of North America and the global chief operating officer for Geringhoff. He was born in Illinois, but has been in Germany for, what's that, Bill, over 15 years? How long have you been in Germany?
Altogether now about 20 years.
All right. Do you miss us?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, welcome to the podcast. We appreciate you joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and your connection to agriculture?
Okay. Well, like we said, I've been in Germany about 20 years. Connection to agriculture. I was born and raised in a small town in Illinois, really in the middle of the cornfields. The town was about four miles away, and so a lot of the culture and social events, they centered around agriculture, county fairs, 4-H, things of that nature. And my father actually grew up on a farm in Germany, and he came to the United States in 1957. He became a tool and die maker, and also had his own machine shop in a small town in Illinois, and repaired tractors. For me, I'm thankful that right now in Germany, I'm actually living on the farm where my father grew up, and also where 15 generations of my family have lived on the same farmstead. So I'm very thankful and grateful for that. Last point on connection to ag is I now work for Geringhoff, and that's a very strong touch point. I'm in the industry, and I'm grateful to play a part with Geringhoff in manufacturing and delivering performance, quality, reliable machines to help the ag community, help our customers get the harvest in.
That's great.
So, Bill, just for our listeners that might not know or haven't heard of Geringhoff, what is your base product? What do you do? How can you help my farmer?
Well, we help the farmer with the header equipment going on to his combine. So our headers, they fit any combine, and we manufacture headers and other products. For the United States, it's primarily corn heads and draper heads. However, we also manufacture sunflower heads as well as milo heads for the customer. And where we fit in is where everybody else doesn't. So we found all of the nooks and crannies in the product line where we can provide a solution, be it row spacing, be it width, be it foldable, be it rigid, or be it residue management that other folks cannot fill.
So this is kind of fun. In a What's Working in Ag segment, we don't get a global perspective very often. So in your observations, Bill, what is working for the farmer in agriculture right now?
There are a number of different things. So what we're working on, well, I guess really if you dig into it, the deepest, what's working in agriculture is probably the same thing that's been working the last 100 years is how do I get more out of what I have?
Yeah.
Right. How do I get more with the same resources or with less resources? What do I need to be doing today to be better positioned tomorrow? So a lot of technology is applied to that in a lot of different areas and interests. Where we come in as Geringhoff is what can we do to help the customer in his needs? Is it row spacing? Is it residue management? Is it the performance of the equipment to just get as close to the ground as we can, like with our razor draper product?
So you just mentioned residue management. What are you seeing different farmers doing to manage their residue?
Okay, well, that's from A to Z, I guess you could say. Really? Yeah, well, I mean, every field is different.
Yeah.
Every harvest is different. Every season is different. And even within the field, you've got differences. So like residue management, there's lots of different options, but you have to say, okay, what's going to be the best for my field? What is my field? Is it dry? Is it wet? Is it hilly? Is it windy in my area of the world? So if you've got, let's say, a wet valley, not very windy, you may want more aggressive residue management to break that up into as small of a piece as possible. But if you're on the top of a hill in a dry area where it's also windy, you may want to leave your straw crimped, but not completely shattered, so that it's broken, so that it can decompose on the outside, but that it stays in place and hooks into the stubble during the winter to catch the snow, right?
Yeah.
But also to resist the wind. And another thing on the residue management is, you're harvesting, and when you're harvesting, you have to be thinking about what's the next season? What am I going to do next with my field? So to harvest, you have to leave the field prepared in such way so that you can go back in and till it, so that you avoid issues with planting, so that you aren't pushing up a wad on your planter and you're having to clear that up every turn.
Yep.
Yeah. Tanner, what I'm hearing is what we've been hearing over and over again since we started this whole podcast. And what that is that you need to know what your farm's doing. Data. I always say data is the currency of the internet.
You do, yeah.
Data is becoming the currency of farming. Now, all these companies and people that can help us take that data and do something with it. And what sounds like Geringhoff is doing is taking, depending on your situation, your area, they have a product that's going to help you out. And so it might be row spacing, it might be residue management. They basically took that technology, said, how can we help you? And so like Century 21, smarter, bolder, faster. That's what we're doing here. Or old BASF, their old slogan was, we don't make the things you use, we make the things you use better.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what they're doing here, is making the things you use better.
Well, I like what Bill said about they found those areas of weaknesses and made that your focus to make a product that fills those gaps and makes one that's very fire superior. So that row spacing that you just brought up again, Dave, that Bill mentioned earlier, is kind of fun. What types of row spacing have you seen out there that's working for farms, Bill?
Well, it's different all over the world, and really it goes from 15-inch all the way to 60-inch, for example, in South Africa. And that's for single row and also for twin row. So you also have that type of row spacing as well. Now, a lot of times when you get to the row spacing, most of the time in the United States, it's dependent upon whether crops you grow and what equipment you have, especially for the planter. So, for example, 15-inch row spacing would be good for beans, but a 38-inch would be good if you're also rotating cotton with your corn crop.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Now on the 15-inch, there's a lot of interest. That's very, very narrow, of course. But with the 15-inch, there's a lot of interest. It's 15-inch row space and then staggered spacing. And the general thinking is that with narrow rows or twin rows, you can stagger out the spacing of the seedling a little bit more, so that the population can be spread out more evenly across the field. Now, that gives more room, and it provides better canopy, is what the thinking is. And it also helps to reduce weed growth with that canopy. But again, every field and every harvest are different. And we mentioned that before, 60-inch, because of the poor soils, 60-inch row spacing is used in South Africa. Please.
We've actually had a couple conversations with some innovative thinkers on our podcast that, one, Zach Smith, the stock cropper, and two, Jason Mock, who are challenging that row spacing conversation in the United States. And it's interesting that you mentioned the poor soils for the 60-inch rows in South Africa, but they're even bringing some of that technology here with some hybrids that flex to try and get giant ears, but then in between the 60-inch rows, also looking at putting a soybean or a cover crop or a wheat or something along those lines to take up that space. So trying to maximize the potential of that corn plant and then also taking advantage of the space that it didn't take up. But that's where I was excited to talk to you about the Geringhoff heads is from what I can tell is it's a very flexible design. If they wanted to harvest a 60-inch row, you've got a head that can do that. If they want to try messing around on 15s or twins, your corn heads are set up to take that on.
Of course, and that's where that's what our playing field is being different, being the company that can go into that area that other companies may not be able to. If you do need a special application, like a 30-inch 18 row, 30-inch all the way up to a 24 row, those are some special machines that we make for special occasions based upon the need. Or 15-inch, we've also built a 32 row. Machine, 40 foot, and it's the only 15-inch in the world where we have a couple of different residue management systems, depending upon what your needs are, but also the only one where it actually has two gathering chains to pull the harvest in.
Hey, that's what we like to hear. And so now your last name, Bill, is unique. Is there a meaning? Is there a story behind Dickhut?
Yeah, Dickhut. Just if you were to translate that in German, it actually means fat hat. So I'm not sure who back in the day had the large cranium, but definitely it had something to do with that. Maybe it was a hat maker.
I think Geringhoff's got smart people under there, and they have maybe a fat hat over the head, but large cranium. I think you nailed it there. They're very smart people.
We need to thank you for spilling some of that knowledge that came out of your Dickhut. And really enjoyed having you to be a part of this. And then also we need to thank Geringhoff for their support of the podcast. So listeners, you will continue to hear some conversations with them as they really enjoyed the mission that Farm for Profit has put together to help your farm achieve higher levels of profitability. We promise not to roll into you and take over with content from them. They just want to support and make sure our message stays as true as possible. And with that, Bill, we thank you again.
Yeah, Tanner, David, thank you very much, gentlemen. You have a great day.
All right, moving in from another great What's Working in Ag segment, Dave, into what might seem like an out-of-place topic for this time of year. We're going to talk combines.
Combines.
And who better to talk about combines than Combine Ryan himself? So if you're familiar on TikTok with Ryan Blaze, he's from Janesville, Iowa, and is the owner of Mobile Inspection Ag Service, which is a business focused on combine inspection and repairs. Is that right, Ryan?
That is correct.
Ryan, tell me, so you're from Janesville, Iowa. What's your tie to agriculture other than your job right now? How'd you get into it?
I actually, out of high school, I guess, I started working at a cabinet manufacturer. And then shortly after that, I had an uncle that owns a large feed mill in Jessup, Iowa, and I worked for him for a few years. And then I had a big break. I always been handy with wrenches. And I had an opportunity to go to Dike, Iowa and work on combines at the largest axial flow dealer in North America. And that's where I got started on combines.
Nice. So this is kind of one of those, Dave, the cliche of early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. And we're Farm for Profit. So I feel like that cliche fits right into what we're doing. So Ryan, why this time of year would it be important to think about our combine?
Well, it's actually, when I inspect them, I prefer to do it right after harvest, because any noise you heard, any smell you smelled, whatever, it's fresh in your mind. But right now, it's more important to get it out of the way now. So many implement dealers, shops like mine, they just get backed up because guys don't think about it until August or September. Well, I go through anywhere from 52 to, I've had a year where I did 76 combines, and you cannot do them in August and September. You have to do it, I do it year round. But this is the perfect time. You're swapping machinery in and out of your shed anyhow, so it's a good time to do it.
So there's a backlog, you're saying, of combines that try to go in. What's the average combine take? Just I don't know. This is a great question, Tanner. For our listeners, how long does it take to service a combine?
That's growing now because, guys aren't trading as often. There's a lot more used combines out there than there is, 1, 2, 3-year-old combines. So we're getting closer. I used to be able to get through them in a couple of days, and now it's getting closer to an average of 5 days to a week. Sometimes they're in the shop for 3 weeks. So,
So it
all varies.
What's the biggest contributing factor to why something sits in there? Is it harder to get parts now, or what might make it take longer?
It's harder to get parts, severity of damage, if it's, rock damage. I used to do everything mobile, and I'd go on the farm site, and I'd repair it all there. And so I just stayed at that one machine till it was done. Well, now with the lack of availability of parts and stuff like that, it's a lot more convenient for them to be at my shop. That way I can work on something else if I am waiting on parts. But that's the big hold up right now is parts. So.
And what do you think the reason is? Is it just on the manufacturing side? Is it shipping? Is it a combination of the both? Or why is it? Because I've heard outside of even combines, just maybe disc openers for planters, it's difficult to get parts. What do you think the contributing factor is?
I think a lot of it's got to be shipping, because you can blame it on manufacturing, but it's because the manufacturer is not getting the product. One of my suppliers is complaining they can't get flighting. Well, I got another supplier that's literally 4 miles from you guys, or from Corey, and they've been keeping me in stock with everything they got. So that to me they have material on hand. So that tells me that it's a trucking issue.
So you made your TikTok name Combine Ryan, and of course you like combines. And if I remember from TikTok, they're red a lot. Do you look at all kinds of combines, or does the guys get specific?
No,
just Gleaner.
I actually made a TikTok this morning. I was working on a corn planter that I screwed up. I don't even know if I posted that, but anyhow, he had bought a Gleaner in there, and I tried selling him a red one. It just didn't work out, I guess.
So you were working on a red planter? I thought all you did as Combine Ryan was work on combines.
Well, I'll tell you this story. Okay, this is another little story. I had a guy, a customer, retire last year, and with COVID, he didn't want to have an auction. Sorry, Dave.
Oh my!
But and, he just entrusted me to sell his equipment, and I happened to sell this guy a planter. Well, some of you know I had shoulder surgery, so I was looking for all kinds of options for work last winter and fall. Well, we went and towed it down, and I had a buddy help me hook it up. And, I only had one arm, and I should have went around and checked everything, and he dropped the pin, and I think he thought I was going to check it, and I never did till we got to Vinton, which was about 30 miles or so. Well, I drug the harness down the road. Oh. So I had to go back and fix that myself. So I did that today, finally.
Somebody on TikTok was just replacing a whole wiring harness, and it took forever. That can be a big job. Huh.
Yeah, I think that was. I just had to fix the end, but it still sucked.
Yeah.
So are there very many others that have a business like yours that has the mobile inspection component? Like you said, you like to have things at your shop, but I know you're set up to work on things in the field. Are there very many businesses set up like yours?
I don't know of that many. I know there's a Hagee guy, and I think actually a couple of Hagee guys that do it. And I know Corey has one of them come down to his. I think there's a lot of mobile people out there, but I don't think any of them just specialize in one thing, except for the two Hagee guys I know.
Okay. With your business, how large of a territory do you have access to then? If it sounds like you're about the only one, how far do you go?
Well, I've narrowed it down quite a bit. Them guys are starting to. I did a lot down around Cedar Rapids area. My first year, I mean, if somebody said they had a combine to work on, I went and did it. I didn't know, I was new to the business world, and I've been at this 11 years. That first year, man, if I had to drive 300 miles, I'd have done it.
So when you're offering services mobile, I mean, even on the auction side, I get people that come just take tires off combines. Like, hey, we sold this. It's going to ship to South Dakota. Do you do small jobs like that all the way to take a rotor out of a gleaner? I mean, yeah. You do all of that.
I used to, yeah, but now it's just kind of what I'm trying to get as much into my shop as I can.
I got
so
you.
I should change the name of the business, but I'm not gonna. It's been that way for
yeah.
11 years, so.
Well, but you could still come out and take a look at something to see what's wrong. They just got to bring it to your shop to get it fixed.
Correct. I still do the inspections mobily because, if it's going to be a matter of servicing it and putting two chains on, you don't need to drive it an hour and a half to my shop.
Right.
Yeah. Equipment gets bigger and bigger and bigger, so moving it becomes such an issue.
Correct. And that's kind of why I've changed, narrowed down that radius. But I do still have guys. I mean, I have guys down by Gladbrook that are willing to drive the combines up to my shop. So, I mean, guys are willing to drive to save, if you think about it, they sit in the combine for 14 hours a day anyhow. So what's sitting in it for 3 or 4 hours to drive to the shop,
Yeah. People that are not agriculture would not understand that. So your area,
people in agriculture that don't understand that.
Oh yeah, I know. So your area got hit pretty hard with the derecho. What you are fixing any combines, just like exterior stuff from that repair?
I only had, I had one that I had to repair before last season that was damaged on the exterior. It actually caved the elevator in. We went down and straightened it out, and then I have to do the repair work to it. We got it to run, and then this spring here I have to do the repair work on it. I have I think 7 combines total that were affected by the derecho, mostly that was the only one cosmetically damaged, but a lot of them were damaged due to running. Picking up the corn in the derecho.
So a lot of our listeners were in the path of the storm. If they're looking at their combine, no matter what the color is, what kind of effects could have harvesting that down corn had on a machine? What should we be looking out for this year?
You're going to want to be checking out auger wear because they took a lot of dirt in, and a lot of debris in. So you're going to look at it just like you would for rock damage. Check your rasp bars, bent feeder slats, stuff like that. But your feeder chain's probably shot, taking all the dirt in. Most of your drive chains are probably shot just from running in the dirt. And that's one of the, so many guys want to cut corners on chains. And for the longest time on my TikTok profile was a picture of a wiring harness that just got sawed in half by a chain. And it was the dumbest thing. The guy told me, he's like, it's no big deal. It keeps jumping off. But, sometime when you get in the area, well, I figured he threw a new chain on, and he didn't. He just kept putting the old one on. And I didn't get there soon enough, and it finally just cut right through the harness. But, I mean, that's, the chains, yeah, they seem expensive, but if you put new chains on, you're not wearing out the sprockets. So, each chain has at least 3 sprockets that are 3 times the value of that chain. So, chains are really cheap. They might have an expensive price tag, but they're pretty cheap in the long run,
So checking those auger flightings out, checking the wear on cross augers, making sure everything is good to go. Anything else that pops in your mind for maybe some abnormal wear due to storm damage that we aren't used to seeing?
Just like I said, you're going to have damage from running debris in, but the biggest thing is the augers and stuff just from the dirt. The ones that I've looked at, the augers are just shot in them. Low hours, they're just shot.
So as soon as we get done planting here, as we record this, we're heading up right into planting season. Then guys are going to start making decisions for summer, fall, spring, etc. That'd be a good time to look at their combines. Do you have, you've been experienced with this for years now. Do you have a checklist that you go through that is real quick you could share? Any sort?
I do. I don't have it with me, unfortunately. I do have one, but for the most part, I do it off the top of my head. I mean, it's all there, and I'm filling it out as I go, but I don't even look it's 2 columns. It's kind of a list I made, narrowed down to highlights, but it's kind of like a tree. There's a lot of branches and a lot of twigs on that tree. You got to branch out from there.
So as Farm4Profit, we try to deliver a message each week to help our farmers achieve higher levels of profitability. What about hiring someone like you, a professional, to run through their combine like that could help their pocketbook out?
Yes, it could. I mean, there's a lot. You'd be surprised at how many people are missing holes in the bottom. Their clean grain trough, a bad elevator chain that's backlegging, and a hole in the elevator that, when they look at it with the naked eye, they're not seeing it. And, they do the walk around the combine and they see shelled corn there. They just think, wow, it must have spilled over. Well, turn some cattle out in your field and see if they all line up in a straight line. That'll tell you in a big hurry.
Yeah, we found one of those underneath on ours, and duct tape helped for a little while, but ultimately that's not the solution.
Gorilla tape.
There you go. So you're running this business, obviously self-employed. We know a lot of these farmers and a lot of business owners, there's a lot of sacrifices, and it takes family support. How could you introduce us to your family? How many kids you got?
I have 3 kids and a wife. I have 2 boys, Combine Mason and Combine Cooper. They both helped me quite a bit. Combine Mason graduated from high school last year. Both boys work at Menards. I don't know if I'm allowed to plug or not, but
yeah,
they both work at Menards. One Mason works out. He runs the forklift in the back, and then Cooper, puts returns back on the shelf, loads cars, and pushes carts around. Because he's in high school, he can't run a forklift yet. And then my daughter, Combine Ryan's favorite kid, that's Gracie. She's 12 years old, and currently she's a volleyball star. I guess you guys can see on TikTok. I put some videos out on the weekend, and we'll actually be heading to a tournament on the way back from Ames on Sunday. So
I see.
Nice. So that you said the boys kind of help you out a little bit in the shop. So that's probably a skill that will be beneficial to them and their livelihood, whether they choose to continue to run this business or go another route. A lot of things they can learn from helping you out.
Yeah, they definitely get some thick skin from it. I'm not a word with, I know that. So.
Well, and if I remember right, you're captain of a fire department, right?
I am the assistant fire chief.
Okay,
here.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for doing that. I like talk firefighting a day of the week. It makes me just think when you said there, Tanner, that you might learn some life skills. Anymore we hire, we were hiring firefighters, and some of them didn't know what a crescent wrench was, or some of them didn't know, and not to their discredit, they didn't grow up that way. Yes. They just didn't. So the life skills that you can learn on a farm, that's something we've never talked about, Tanner, is just basics. I asked a guy to go get a sledgehammer, and he's like, "What is a sledgehammer?" He just doesn't know, and it's not to their discredit. Again, it's just they don't know. So so many of us learn that at a young age with our fathers.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great point. So, in your line of work, Ryan, are you seeing a shortage of mechanics? Is it kind of diminishing? Do you see a demand of work that far exceeds the amount of mechanic availability, or what are you seeing?
I definitely do, and I think a lot of it is coming back to like what we were saying earlier about why is it an important time to look at your combine now. It's it's important to keep mechanics busy year round. I've worked at dealerships where in this time of year, right after planting, we're in there painting the walls and cleaning the walls and just wondering if there's something to do. And then they cut them back to 40 hours. And then August and September comes around, and they're just cramming stuff out the door. And I mean, the other thing is it's more efficient when you can, if you can, or I don't know if it's more efficient, but you're going to get a better job out of your mechanic if you get it done when they have time to do it versus when they have not enough time and too much to do. You know what I mean? So,
well, I follow that. You normally the production quality goes down in the overtime hours. If you can do it on a fresh brain and fresh body, you'll do quite well there. So do you think this could be an opportunity for our listener if they are mechanically savvy or they've got a mechanic on staff that they might be able to pick up doing combines in the off season on their farm as a side business?
Absolutely. There's in fact, that would be my dream, is to farm and then do this on the side. But it just, as you know, farming's cutthroat, and it's just not going to happen. So
if we've got a listener that thinks that might be something that would work for their operation, what are some things they should watch out for or make sure that they do first if they're going to go into this foray?
Well, when I left the machine, when I left the implement dealer I was at, I left with my last paycheck and my toolbox, and right away, we've spent the last 10 years here just buying equipment to try to furnish my shop. My advice is do like I did, go out and do it mobile, but don't drag it out for 10 years. Go to the bank. I didn't want to borrow any money, so we just did it.
We got a guy that doesn't want to sell equipment with an auctioneer and a guy that doesn't want to borrow money from a banker.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I shouldn't say I don't want to borrow money. Believe me, I got plenty of loans out there. But it was just something about, if you could build up slowly as you go, that's the way to go. But I don't think I'd build it as slow as I did. I think I'd borrow a little bit of money and get yourself a shop. It's a lot more efficient. I've wore out a lot of pickups over the years.
Yeah.
Mine's too far away. But if you got a dream, go for it. I don't care whether you're a farmer that wants to do it or whether you're fresh out of high school and you want to do it. If you know how to turn a wrench, pick an item and learn it. I can work on about anything. I know there's a few guys you see like woodchuck implement, he's out by Brian Adams out in Ohio. That guy will work on anything. But if you want to specialize in something, just do it. I mean, it's once you get your name out there and they know you know how to work on it.
Well, and I think that's the new norm, Tanner. And Ryan, when you Google, if you had a heart attack today, say your dad had a heart attack, who are you going to Google search? Are you going to Google search general practitioner?
Nope, cardiologist.
All day long.
Yep.
So who is the specialist in combines? And that's what we're talking about here. So now I got to ask you $1 million question. So of all the combines you've ever worked on, and this might hit home too hard, what is your favorite combine, or what is the best combine on the market? We got, Case John Deere, Gleaner, Lexon. I mean, there's so many different combines. What do you think is the best, and then what's your favorite?
I'll tell you right now, tractors are tractors and combines are red. That's just
tractors are tractors and combines are red.
All right, so out of the red model, I think I've seen a couple of your TikToks that there are some favorites of yours to work on. But then there's also some that you think are better quality than the others. Could you elaborate?
Okay, so the 2388, when I worked in Dyke there at Walderman's, each mechanic had a list of things to do. Well, I worked on 2388s. At that time, they were the biggest combine out there. And he sold 1 million of them, and he saturated the market with them. But that's all I worked on. So that was my favorite combine for the longest time. And then they came out with the 8010, and it was just a disaster. They released it too soon. So I hated them. But now the 8120, 7120, that is my new favorite combine. It's pre-def, pre-emissions. They're still fairly simple. That's my new favorite combine, just because the 2388s are all dying and gone. They're all on small farms now, or smaller farms, I guess. But
I get that. That makes a lot of sense. So then if we're sitting here this spring, listening to this podcast, going through the field, getting ready to plant our crop, getting into this, if we've already had our machine gone through, what are some things to make sure that we can do preventative maintenance-wise for next fall? Is there any quick tips you can give there?
Just make sure your belts, chains, everything are adjusted. Keep them adjusted. Lube them. There's a company out there, I think it's Lubematic or something like that. It's a luber. It's like $400. You put it on there. You can put used motor oil on it, 30 weight motor oil, whatever. It lubes every time you swing your unloading auger out. It'll automatically oil your chains. Don't fall in the trap of, I'm going to oil them whenever I think of it. That doesn't work. That just collects dust and ruins the chains. But you'll get 4 times the life out of the chain if you put one of them lubers on there.
So this is
I don't sell them. Here I am plugging a product I don't even sell, but whatever.
So this is going to kind of bring up a little bit of discussion between my family and my in-laws. So one side states that you don't ever put oil on a chain because it causes that chain to stretch, and the other religiously says we want to oil this chain to extend its life. What's the way to go?
Sure. Oil it. You either got to oil it or
that's simple.
Don't. Like I said, if you oil it every once in a while, you're just going to add dust to the problem, and it's not going to. You'll do it more harm than good if you just oil it every once in a while. But if you oil it constantly, they're going to last.
So do you have, most mechanics I know have a sign in their shop that says, if you've already previously worked on it, it costs more money. Do you have a sign like that? I'm just curious as a mechanic.
I do not, but in high school, I worked at a small engine shop, and that was over in Sac City, Iowa. And I actually had a neighbor come in that was a pain. And a buddy of mine was helping, and he was getting aggravated. All he was doing was oil changes and blade sharpening, and this guy was bothering him. And I actually warned him that it was going to be double if he helped, and he didn't listen. And so we gave him twice the bill. We doubled, and I put right on there that you helped, and he never came back.
Well, yeah, I don't blame him. Yeah, I get that. I follow that exactly. So as you're doing these repairs, we all have favorite customers. I know Dave's got a favorite customer. I've got a favorite customer. Might not be a person in general, but we know that there is a trait, a personality, the way they treat us. On the combine repair side, what type of farmer makes your favorite customer?
The guy that says, come look at the combine. Yep, whatever you say it needs. And then they pay the bill as soon as you leave. That's
the pay the bill is the key part.
Yeah, it is.
But it's trust. Yeah. It's trust in that you know what you're doing. You're not going to screw them over. Tanner, I was just thinking the same thing as you were saying. I have my customer. I'm like, yeah, it's the guy that says, we know you know what you're doing and you're going to do it right. Whatever you need to spend, make it happen. And here's your check. It's probably the same in all our businesses.
Yeah, and I was, trying to brainstorm answers that you might have. It's the guy that already has his combine blown off, or it's the guy that does stuff too. But I liked your answer. That makes a lot of sense.
That's funny. And one of the biggest parts of our business is blowing them off, and I absolutely hate it. I just despise it. I don't know why we don't charge more, because I know guys are willing to pay more.
So when I think of combines, I think complicated. I mean, we've come so far in harvesting grain, just so far. It's one of the biggest technological advances, I think, when I look at the Farm Power Show. So as an auctioneer, when I go to when I go to someone's house and they say, hey, yeah, we're selling this, and oh, it's a good combine. And I look at it, every one is different, and some of them have GPS, and some have 4 screens, some have 1 screen, some have the red seat package, some have the premium package, and I have to emulate that to the crowd that's going to buy it, that how it looks, what it feels. Some have a buddy seat, some don't, some are older, some have auger extensions, hopper extensions, chaff spreaders. There's so many different parts to it that they could have. There's a lot for you to keep up on. How do you keep up with it all? I mean, I'm trying to keep up with just the terminology of what the different hookups are on the front, because there's different heads and they might have different connections and how they hook up. How do you stay current?
Yeah, and that's part of that. That might be why the 8120 is my new favorite combine, is because the 30, 40, and 50 series, they are getting harder for me to keep up with, because naturally I'm not allowed at to go to school at Case IH anymore. I used to spend a lot of time down there in Nevada at the training center.
Yeah.
Go down there for a week, and I haven't been to a single class in 11 years now, probably a little longer than that, because when they knew I was quitting, they were done sending me to school.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But but the principle of the combine is still basically the same. And the fact of the matter is, I don't have access to any software or anything like that, which is also one of the reasons I quit my job, was because I had all these tools, and that I was the precision farming specialist. One of two at the dealership I was at in Waverly there. And it was frustrating. It's, you'd go and like when a bearing's out, a guy understands that. When their GPS signal's down, they don't understand that, and they're mad. They want it fixed, but nobody knows how. You don't understand why the satellites are down or whatever. So that's kind of one reason I quit and went on my own, because I had all them tools invested. But the point of that is the basic machine is still the same.
Yeah.
It's just the electronics and the hydraulics and all that is, it's still all nuts and bolts that hold together. So there is a lot of things I still have to turn to the dealership for, but most of that stuff rears its ugly head in the first year of that combine.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. So you work on the combines themselves a lot. Do you ever get into doing maintenance on the headers?
A little bit. Surprisingly, a lot of guys will do that on their own. Or they think they do anyhow, and then that's when I have to work on it, is when it's when they're really shot. So,
do you got a header type, a header brand that is your favorite?
Bean head or corn head, does it matter?
Corn head, yep. We'll talk corn head.
Geringhoff, I think Geringhoff is probably my favorite, just because they were the first one to come out with a true heavy. I think they were the first ones I remember with a big heavy gathering chain and them shallow sprockets that just worked good.
That is the absolute best commercial. So if you didn't realize this, but they're sponsoring this episode, and we did not tell Combine Ryan that they were doing that. That is a pure testimonial. We lobbed it up, and he knocked it out of the park.
Knocked it out. It's swinging a home run. Yep. Yeah. They got quite a product.
Yeah, they do. It's they're heavy built, that's for sure.
So as we get ready to wrap up here, we always like to ask if we missed something. Is there something along these lines for our listeners, if they're thinking about their combine, that they ought to not forget or consider?
Well, if you don't know you want to hire somebody, or you can't get somebody hired, like I said, just go through, pull on your chains and your belts, make sure where the tensioners go through the alignment bracket, that it's not rubbing through that tensioner, going to break. Don't be afraid to replace your chains, check your belts, and just adjust them by the book, and make sure you are adjusting by the book. So many people read their book 20 years ago and think it's still the same. That's a big issue. Be patient with your mechanic. Just remember, just because it's an emergency for you, it might not be an emergency for him.
That's a good point. It just spawned another question in my head. You got any good stories about the weirdest repair you've had to do, or the strangest thing that you ever seen broken? You got any good stories about situations you've been put in?
Deer caught in a header, raccoon in the grain bin.
Boy, I've had a lot of raccoon stories, I can tell you that. There's probably some I can't tell on here.
Underwear on the auger.
Nothing like that. But okay, there you go. You brought up a good one, Dave. Back in, I was at Walterman's yet, so I don't remember if it was an election year or, it was right after 9/11. Everybody was flying flags on their combines, and we had one wrapped up tight. An American flag was wrapped up tight. We ended up pulling the whole unload and auger system out to get that American flag out.
Whoa.
And, but you know what? We took it apart without cutting that flag, so that was pretty cool. So
yeah. That is a good story. I appreciate you putting that together. I'm going to get ready to summarize what we talked about here, Ryan. We ask every one of our guests, though, to think about the most common trait that all the most successful farmers have in common. So just kind of think about that while we summarize here, and we'll come back to you. So had Combine Ryan from TikTok on here. We started off with Mr. Dickhut from Geringhoff, but had Combine Ryan on to talk about your combine. We understand that you're out in the field planting right now, getting the seed bed ready to go, possibly putting anhydrous on when you get this in your ears. But this is the time to be thinking about it. We can't wait until August and September when everybody else waits to get their combine in. If you want a better job done, more than likely to get that done is to have it done when it is not an emergency or a rush to them. Take a look at those belts, chains, bearings, look around there. But ultimately, if you can hire a professional to give you their opinion, trust it. That's why you're hiring them in the first place. Take a look in your area. If you can't find somebody there, you might have to road it for a little ways. But truly, that trusted advisor goes a long ways. If you're thinking derecho, damaged crops that you put through your combine, those augers are something we really need to pay attention to. Anybody that's running a business is going to have some sacrifice, but we know if you can get your family involved, you're going to give them some much needed skills for their future, and that's something that Combine Ryan has stated. If you're a good customer to one, you're probably a good customer to all. Think about the whole picture, the whole story here, making sure that you just trust that advisor that puts the advice in front of you. And ultimately, if you're running a red combine and you don't know what to do, you look up Combine Ryan on TikTok, and he will have the answer for you.
So, Ryan, we ask everybody kind of the same question. What do the most successful farmers and operators that you know all have in common? And while you're thinking about that answer, I'm going to give us a challenge, Tanner. And our challenge would be maybe a different one. You know, you might say, make sure we service the combine, make sure we do something like that. I'm going to say the challenge today is to only make it it's only an emergency if you make it one. And so remember that people get, we were just having a conversation about working cattle and swearing and all that stuff. And remember, it's only an emergency if you make it one, so don't make it one. Just calm down, take a breath, and start over. So with that being said, what is the number one commonality that the most successful farmers have in common?
Two things I notice that my successful customers have in common are the owner of the farm runs the combine and the planter.
Okay. So what about that do you think makes them successful? Is that, in your opinion, a key part of the operation?
It shows the discipline because, when the boss is away, the mice will play, or when the cat's away, the mice will play. Speed. I see that a lot. And speed is very important with planter. It's very important with the combine. You got to keep the combine operating at max efficiency and not abusing it. And the same with the planter. If you don't have a good stance, you don't have a good crop.
Yeah, we've been learning about that this spring. So I think you hit the nail right on the head. We appreciate you, Ryan, for joining us. That's at Combine Ryan on TikTok. Ryan Blaze out of the Janesville, Iowa area with his mobile inspection ag service. If you got questions, you can reach out to him. Otherwise, if you have questions for us, it's Farm4Profit LLC at gmail.com. Remember to like, rate, review, and share this podcast with as many of your friends as you possibly can. And thank you to Geringhoff for their sponsorship and for Granular for being a proud partner of the Farm4Profit podcast. And until next time, have a good one.
Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long.